Okay, here's homework, the review on adding and subtracting rational expressions. This is number 4. Okay, so I have two fractions and they're being subtracted. In order to subtract them, they need to have a common denominator. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to factor the denominators to see if they actually have anything in common so that I don't have to necessarily add extra stuff. So the first denominator here has a 10 in common, and I'm going to end up with n minus 1. The second denominator just has a 3 and an n. Okay, so it looks like the common denominator that everybody has to have, I'm just going to go through and collect all of my different terms. So let's see, they have to have a 10 and an n minus 1. Okay, basically just rewrite the first fraction's denominator. The second denominator says, well, they also need to have a 3, okay, because I don't technically have a 3 yet. I have a 10, which is a 2 and a 5, but no 3 yet. And they also have to have an n. Let me go ahead and rewrite this so it's a little bit neater. It looks like the first number 10 and 3 meet up at is 30. So that's, everybody's got to have a 30 and an n minus 1. That is going to be my common denominator that I want everyone to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two fractions, I'm going to slide over here just a little bit, and I'm going to rewrite it. Here's my first fraction. He needs to have a 30, an n minus 1 in his denominator. So the question is, what have I added to this new denominator that the old one didn't have? Because that tells me what I need to multiply the top and bottom by. So when I look at this, well, it looks like he needs a 3 in order to bring him up to a 30, okay, and it also looks like he needs an n, okay, and when I multiply that out, the denominators, I'll end up with this new denominator here, so that's the goal. So I know that the top needs to be multiplied by 3n as well. So I'm just going to write down what it looks like at the moment. I'm not going to multiply anything out, but I basically have added a 3n to the top and the bottom so that the denominator is my CD. I need to take away my second fraction. So he needs to have the exact same denominator. So the question here is, what did I have to add through multiplication to the denominator in order to make it look like 30 times n minus 1? And it looks like I need a 10 and an n minus 1. Okay, so a 10 has to go on the top as well as an n minus 1. So I'm going to rewrite that down here. I have 5n, and I'm going to multiply it by 10, and I'm going to multiply that by an n minus 1. Okay, so this is what it looks like now that I've added in the stuff that the denominator was missing into each fraction. What I'm going to do now is simplify the numerators of my fractions. Here's my denominator. He didn't change at all. Don't ever multiply out the denominator because you don't have to. Okay. The top of the first fraction is going to be a 3n squared minus 9n. Subtract the second fraction. Let's see, I'm going to multiply the 5n and the 10 together first, so I'm going to get 50n. And then when I distribute that into my parentheses, looks like I get 50n squared minus 50n. Okay. Now my tops are combined neatly inside of each fraction. Let's go ahead and write this as one big fraction. My denominator stays the same, 30n minus 1. And in the numerator, if I were to make this into one big fraction up here, I would be subtracting 50n squared and I would be adding 50n. When I distribute that, and then I'm going to just connect this as one big fraction. So it looks like I get negative 47n squared. That's these two terms put together, like terms. And then when I do negative 9n plus 50n, that's going to give me plus 41n. Okay? Now I have one big fraction, and it just needs to be simplified. This goes back all the way to less than 1. Okay. When I look at this, 47 and 41 don't have anything in common, but they do have an n I could pull out. let me write down what's left over once I pull that out. And in my denominator, I still have 30 times n minus 1. And I see that I can cancel out the n's. Okay? So my final answer is going to look like negative 47n plus 41. They have nothing else in common that I could pull out and cancel or reduce. And in the denominator, I get 30 times n minus 1. And that is the answer for this final question.